I think we have admitted everybody, and at this point, I am very happy to be welcoming you. I am Lauren Stiller-Rickleen, the Executive Director of Lawyers Defending American Democracy. And we appreciate that so many of you are here today on this very late summer day for the second part of our Meeting the Moment orientation webinar series. We're also grateful that your presence indicates your interest in this important new initiative. I know as well that all of our hearts are broken today by yet another horrific act of gun violence in this country, in which children were murdered at their school in a church service. And I really felt it was important to acknowledge that. Meeting the Moment is based on the essential premise that there is an urgent need for every American to understand why it matters to their own lives when democracy and the rule of law are under attack every day. We know the challenges are steep. We face a constant barrage of disinformation and attacks that create widespread distrust of the media, the courts, and other institutions. And we also know that these attacks are an effort to make it easier to dismantle the fabric of our country. We believe that lawyers can be critical allies in combating this disinformation and helping the public understand what is at stake and why all of us must act. Lawyers are trusted voices in their communities, trained to understand and communicate about democracy and the rule of law as essential values to protect. Through Meeting the Moment, LDAD, in collaboration with state leads and volunteers, will develop messaging and materials that lawyers across the country can bring to their communities, networks, and beyond, engaging in the important work of widespread outreach. Together, we will develop and promote key messages to respond to fast-paced news cycles filled with disinformation that undermine constitutional values. We will engage in rapid-fire responses to attacks on the legal profession, the justice system, and the rule of law. And we will engage in day-to-day efforts to build an understanding of why none of us can be bystanders to the dismantling of our government, our educational institutions, our civil society organizations, and indeed our profession. And we will do this within our role as a nonpartisan, nonprofit organization and in accordance with all the requirements of that important designation. There will be much more for us to follow up with on this. Today, I'm delighted to introduce Todd Fahey as our second speaker in this webinar series. Todd is the managing partner of the law firm Upton Hatfield in New Hampshire. And in his work, Todd brings versatility and experience, just as he does, to his work for LDAD. Todd had previously served for 8 years as a state director for AARP New Hampshire, an organization with over 215,000 members, where he was responsible for its overall strategic direction. In this role, Todd worked across all economic sectors, and in doing so, drew upon his legal, policy, and business skills to advance AARP's mission of enhancing the quality of life for all of us as we age. Todd has served on a variety of nonprofit boards and has served civically within his community. He draws upon a unique academic, practical, and business skill set to provide sound counsel to clients, and he brings that skill set to our work at LDAD. He's been an enthusiastic supporter of this initiative since the beginning, and we are happy for him to be able to share his lessons learned from his work and his significant experiences organizing volunteers. So one quick note before turning the virtual microphone over to him. We want to make sure that you have an opportunity to ask questions, so please make sure you send your questions along to us through the Q&A tab. We will be monitoring those as we go. Also, we will be recording this presentation, but the question and answer portion will not be shared as part of that recording after the webinar. So thank you, Todd, and the floor is now yours.
Thank you, Lauren. Thank you for the kind introduction. Good afternoon, everybody attending this webinar today. As a preliminary comment, I'll make this statement. I am the managing partner of my law firm, but I speak not for my law firm, nor for any of my partners. These thoughts are my thoughts, And while I'll relate some of the great experiences I had while organizing with AARP, my comments are also my comments, not those of AARP, and nor are they privileged information from AARP, but I think they'll be instructive. The reason I thought it important to have this discussion is that a lot of folks at this point are very concerned about the state of our democracy and the state of the rule of law as we know it. And for me, I thought there has to be something to do besides hand wringing. And I've had the occasion in traveling in my business practice around the country, speaking with lawyers all over, even American lawyers I've met on airplanes traveling and American lawyers I've met at other seminars all across the country. And there is a sense of great concern, if not despair, about many of the things that Lauren has chatted about relative to the state of our democracy and the eroding of some of the institutions that we all hold dear. So rather than engage in consistent hand-wringing over it, I said there must be a way to get, how do we engage? How do we meet this moment? And hence the idea of meeting the moment has come forward. While working with AARP, I had the great fortune of engaging hundreds of volunteers, and it, like LDAD, is a nonpartisan organization, steadfastly nonpartisan, like LDAD. And so my comments and my training was really to be in that nonpartisan space. I used to call it a sacred space of nonpartisanship. And it's not a bad place to be today, because there's such polarization on either end of the spectrum that people really have a hard time communicating beyond their political talking points in many ways. But why lawyers? Well, the beauty here is that lawyers have the ability to use their voice and their influence and to engage a wider audience. For those of you who were on the call last week, you heard Dr. Abel make comments about this micro level approach to people to make what's happening intelligible to folks. And who better to talk about the rule of law and threats to it than the lawyers? So my experience at AARP is a little unique for a lawyer, because I practiced law for, many years. I'm a 32-year veteran of law practice, and I took an 8-year hiatus at AARP, and I've now had the ability to marry the two experiences: my passion for all things legal, the rule of law, profound concern for the state of our democracy, and also finding a way to do something about it. So I will talk more directly about my experience with AARP, but I want to start with this. You have the ability to bring together, to leverage your voice and experience, and to build volunteer teams. You needn't, if you're beset by anxiety over the events of the day, whatever they might be, the disinformation, attacks on judges, the judiciary, all things that we hold true, separation of powers, you can do something about it. And you will probably find many people who share your viewpoint. So I come to this with the thought that building a structure of volunteers is possible. I have done it. I will share tips about how you can do it. The difference, AARP folks were really aligned around issues. It might have been Social Security, it might have been caregiving, it might have been Medicare or something like that. But they were unified in their belief and their passion for these things. We have taken an oath, and I presume many of you are lawyers, to safeguard the rule of law and to do something about that. We took an oath, and the oath is not just a passive oath that we take on one day. We're not supposed to do falsehood, and you all know what the oath is in your states, your statutory oath and the oath of office that's administered by your courts. But I would say to you, I think that they're implicit in that is that we should do something more to stand for the rule of law. And meeting the moment is the vehicle through which you'll be able to do that. So this first picture, I love the picture of these concentric circles in the water. It's no different than a leak in the basement. And everything starts small and it radiates outward. And it starts small and radiates outward, either for good or for bad. And you know how that works, right? It's a drip. It's the constant drip that you don't take care of in a kitchen or a leaking sink. unattended, those little drips that seem inconsequential in the moment become a much bigger problem when you come home from a long day of work. And I do think that there's a ripple effect to what we do now, and there's a ripple effect to what we don't do. So you can be the ripple or you can react to the ripple. And in this case, meeting the moment is going to give you an opportunity to use your voice and hopefully build a structure of like-minded people really transcending politics. I want to stress that again, transcending politics to talk about the more true and the beautiful. For those liberal arts majors, you know what I'm talking about. And there's something deeper than profound that we are to stand for. And it really is embodied in our oath. And so the idea here is to leverage your voice and to leverage your influence. Your voice is really the most powerful weapon we have to counteract a lot of the things that we see eroding our rule of law and really the state of our democracy. But more importantly, most lawyers tend to be individual contributors. And by that, I mean, we bill hours, we service clients. And I don't have everybody's bio on this webinar, but you probably know that to be true. There's leaders of teams and there are individual contributors. The purpose of this webinar is to honor both. If you want to be an individual contributor and volunteer with this, that would be great. That we'd love to have you. If you want to scale your voice and build volunteer teams, we're happy to have you do that. There's absolutely nothing nefarious about what we're doing, and I think we're all duty bound to do something. So the idea is to start to have these discussions with trusted people in community, and you are the messengers of those and the catalyst for those discussions, whether the discussions with faith-based organizations, the business communities, civic organizations. Nearly everybody I talk to, if they don't understand the concepts of the separation of power, the Constitution, or the rule of law, they know, they're smart enough many times to know that something's a little amiss, or a lot amiss, as it were. And we're going to give you an opportunity and some talking points to use your voice to help you counteract some of those forces. LDAD will provide materials for you to use in that process. And so you're not going to need to create everything from whole cloth. We will certainly welcome and do welcome your input because, as I'll say later, what may resonate in the Southeast or the Midwest may not resonate in the Northeast or the Pacific Northwest. But regardless, there will be some consistent messaging that's important. I'll come back down to that later too. What you're seeing nationally now is a concentrated exercise of legal authority, and in many cases being met with episodic legal skirmishes. I'm going to repeat that. What you're seeing now is a concentrated exercise of legal authority, or a questionably legal authority, that's being met in the court with a great deal of success, frankly, hearkening back to Dr. Abel's presentation of last week, but being met with episodic legal skirmishes. What we're trying to do is meet the moment on a broader basis, pursuant to our oaths in a nonpartisan way to stand for the rule of law and the state of our democracy. And I think you'll find company in your voice because it will be your voice that will permit you to make your contacts, reach out to your connections, and start these conversations on a micro level. And it will succeed because of your experience and connections. There's so much noise, it's virtually impossible to cut through it. We all know that. Every day brings its own woe. Today, as Lauren said, certainly more. But the one-on-one micro conversations need to be where it begins, and it needs to begin with American lawyers of goodwill who want to do something to stand for this moment and to talk about the toxicity of the moment and the danger if we proceed on this course of action uncorrected. So So why lawyers? Why now? And what next? So lawyers are smart and they're skilled at many things, but many of us, and I mean no disrespect to anybody on the webinar, many of us have not been trained to lead teams. We didn't go to business school. We generally not managers, and so what I hope to do is to give you some tools if you're inclined to build a team. Um, Volunteers, and I'll speak to them for a minute. They if you make it easy for people to join you, they'll do it. And the whole idea of the state leads or other volunteer lawyers here is to find an easy way to engage, to do something. The one thing I kept hearing from people and continue to hear, probably like you, is they feel they need to do something. In the core of most lawyers is a sense that things are awry. When friends of ours who might be judges, be it a circuit court judge or a Supreme Court justice in our state Supreme Courts, or those serving on the district courts, federal judges, are feeling under assault and if not maligned, then perhaps even threatened, some of us have to feel something for that. It is incumbent upon us to do something about it. Not just LDAD, but lawyers generally need to do something about that. And so if we put together a structure and make it easy for people to engage, you build the structure, we help you with the structure, there's an opportunity to build some momentum and to re-inject some of the propriety into our system that we know needs to be there. But volunteers, if you're going to build a team, it needs to be easy. I mean, I'm sure many of you have served on boards, and sometimes people don't want to create new content. People don't want to have to create a whole presentation, for instance, to give to like a Rotary Club or a faith-based organization. It would be better if you would have such content that was expertly prepared, properly messaged, and then you would be the person delivering it. So why lawyers? It's because we have a duty to speak. And why now? Because now is a time to speak. And you know that implicitly. And I am not treading into the partisanship. I am not. But sometimes, as the drip and the concentric circles we've seen, at some point, those things become the norm if people don't speak against those things and call them out for what they are. Not everybody is privileged to have the education that we've had or the ability to work with a group like LDAD or to even have the passion to join a webinar like today. But we do have a duty, if not to ourselves, then to our nation, to our bars, and to our families to say something and to do something. And I'm going to stress that again. I think we're duty bound to do something. That is not an indictment for those who have not yet acted. It's an invitation to act on a national level in your states, using your voice in a very nonpartisan and faithful way, faithful to your oath of office as a lawyer, to defend your state and federal constitutions, and by direct inference, the rule of law, and by direct inference or indirect inference, the separation of powers. These are all things that people are expecting us to do. They may not say it, but there's an expectation that somebody needs to be doing it. So your voice is critical, and what's next is you need to decide where you might plug in. Do you want to be an author? Do you want to help raise funding for the organization? Do you want to use your legal skills to engage in litigation? I mean, that's something you could do, or to be in a supporting role, or to draft briefs. There's multiple ways to engage. The reason I'm not starting with the most obvious, and you're probably scratching your head saying, why is he talking about this? We're lawyers. It's because I think it's deeper than that. The ecosystem of law and our judges, we know that's working. For those of us who are litigators or business lawyers or administrative lawyers, whatever we do, we navigate that terrain every day. The bigger issue is pulling back the lens, is that the ecosystem itself is under attack, right? And who better to talk about the propriety of the whole system than us? Because without the system of our democracy or the rule of law, it all collapses. And that may sound like hyperbole, but it's not hyperbole. It just isn't. And one way to look at your involvement here I know people hate the the sports analogies, but I'll give one. In this case, you would be you would use your voice for the windup, and the pitch would be materials that LDAD could provide to you and will provide to you. And it's not an effort to control the authenticity of your message, but messaging is important. Remember my comment that there's a concentrated exercise of legal power now throughout the nation, right? Not just Washington, it's everywhere. And if there's not a consistent and concentrated, thoughtful message that resonates, then the message is going to be lost. So as good as your windup might be, the windup being you get people's attention, they're listening to you, they're focused, they take your call. If the pitch is not a compelling one, it might be a polite, I really don't want to get involved. I really, not something I'm too interested in, or I disagree with you. It sounds a little political to me. So the appeal here is that it not be political, and that politics are going to be certainly implicated indirectly in this discussion, because honestly, everything is infused with politics today. But it's not a partisan approach. Our lawyer's oath is not a partisan undertaking. So we understand that lawyers are smart, and you'll want to have your stamp of authenticity, particularly if you choose to lend your voice to an initiative that's bigger than you. But I do think that the whole idea that creating something bigger than you is really important. Now, you could be an individual contributor using some of the materials that LDAD will provide to help meet this moment. You could also, and we'll get to that in a minute, start to develop volunteer teams. And those teams would be populated by lawyers, many of whom you know. And there are ways to do it. I did it at AARP. It was some of the most rewarding work of my life. And your voice then becomes leveraged and amplified many, many, many times over. Certainly if we have the ability to use consistent messaging. So tips for building volunteer teams. I'm going to give you a handout on this as well. It's not, I don't have it as part of the slide deck, but you will have it. And I'll just give them to you about volunteer teams and how you scale your personal momentum and your enthusiasm. So if this be your choice, again, those who want to remain individual contributors should do that. Those who want to build a volunteer team in conjunction with LDAD's work should do just that. So here's how you do it. Sketch out a structure. People like being a part of something bigger than themselves. Promise that to them and deliver on it, right? So a structure, what does it look like? Have regular short meetings with an agenda and clear action items. And I know what you're all thinking, I'm busy. I'm busy. I understand. I'm a volunteer with LDAD. But if we do not do something to meet this moment, I ask you, who do you think will? I mean, who is going to do anything? It has to be lawyers. And I don't think we can only leave it to the litigators and the organizations like LDAD and similar orgs and the courts. I think it needs to be a bigger message in defense of the rule of law and the whole ecosystem in which we all do our work every day. And let's be honest, I mean, most of us, the law has been good to us in many ways. And we do, beyond our oath, we owe it to give something back. So have short meetings with an agenda, clear action items, leave room on your agendas for discussion points and ideas. Just a little, don't be tyrannized by your agenda. Very simple, open it, and all of a sudden something comes up. The idea, in fact, of volunteer-led teams with co-leads to engage for AARP, and we did it masterfully, came about in we call it a generative discussion, that people came up and said, well, listen, what if we do this differently? What if we set the structure up like that? And it was brilliant. And if we were so focused on just banging through the 6 or 5 or 7 agenda items, we would not have had that generative discussion. Be available after your meeting or at set times. Make it easy for people to engage and contribute. People want to do something. They may not call it meeting the moment, but you might suggest that that's what they're trying to do. key for leaders of teams is organization and role clarity. Individuals who are individual contributors, like most of us lawyers, we don't really worry about all the organization and role clarity. We don't need the role clarity. We just know we got to meet our deadlines and service our clients, because the role is our role, and our role is that of an advocate. And as far as organization goes, I leave that all to you about how organized you are. But in this case, if you're going to lead people, you need to have some semblance of organization, and it won't be particularly difficult, but that's really important for the credibility and for people to continue engaging and giving you their time. And the role clarity is really important, meaning, what do you expect of them? Who is doing what and when? What are their deliverables? Joe Smith is going to write an op-ed. Mary Smith is going to speak to the Rotary Club. I have a person who is a lawyer who somehow is connected to all Rotary clubs in New Hampshire. This is fictitious. And that person is going to connect me and plug us in. And I need to recruit 20 people to go talk to the Rotary clubs about what the rule of law is. We'll give you the presentation. You bring your voice and your connection. Now, are we talking to the right people? I hope so. I mean, the message will be a smart message. Are the people at Rotary clubs the people we need to meet to talk about the urgency of this moment? I suspect some, maybe not all, but there's an opportunity to certainly engage and to do something. So beyond that, the nuts and bolts, start small, right? It's the little victories. I can go back to my drips and my concentric circles picture. Identify your easiest contacts first. Talk to people you know. Look, I've approached a few people who are dear friends, people of incredibly goodwill who are not interested in helping me. I've approached other people who I never thought would have any interest in this, who are all over it. So you don't know. And the approach of authenticity and decency, not being adversarial, but staying in that sacred nonpartisan space, I think is very helpful. And I would also say to you that individuals are much easier to engage than organizations. So I'm talking about individual contacts. If you're trying to move your state bar association or any other related bar association, there's going to be, you could do it, but it might be a harder get for you, harder victory over time. And it may well be, and maybe it's just that you share the opportunity to do this, and maybe there's some collaboration that happens later, this being engaging and meeting a moment. But some groups won't engage, some people won't engage because of fear or political reasons or personal reasons. And so if that happens, just politely move on. It's okay. Here's the thing. If you've made the ask, you've done something to meet the moment in furtherance of your oath of office. At least you've tried to do something. And on the other side, think about, this organization has many lawyers nationwide. I leave it to Lauren to speak about that. But this could be hundreds, if not thousands, of lawyers engaging on this topic to the good of the nation. And what better legacy could we have than to do something as noble as that? Again, that's not political. It's simply in defense of the underpinnings of our democracy and the rule of law. You're going to have to tailor your ask. Your personal voice will penetrate the noise and the despair and the politics. For sure it will. And that's what's needed right now. It's that personal connection, just looking somebody in the eye and just gently talking to them. But you need to know what you're asking and who you're asking to do what. Some people are writers. Some are going to be organizers. Some may well get fired up and say, look, I see this brief and I'm going to file a similar action in my state. Let them go. Let them do it. Maybe they can mobilize their firm because their firm is of one mind on it. That's fine. But you think you need to know and maybe be open to their feedback about what they can do and what they can't do. But once you've penetrated the noise, don't squander that opportunity, because they've opened the door and they're listening to you. So what does it look like? And the gentle, authentic approach founded in our collective oaths of office, I think, is really very important. Ask, remind, and inspire. Ask your connections if they feel a need to act. Remind them of their oaths very gently. And I'll read you I'll read you mine from New Hampshire. New Hampshire Supreme Court Rule 42E, likely similar to others across America. Every attorney admitted to practice in New Hampshire shall take and subscribe an oath to support the constitutions of New Hampshire and of the United States and the oath of office set forth in our statutes. So by direct implication, this requires action in support of democracy, separation of powers, and the rule of law. What is there to debate for American lawyers if you take that as true? And I do believe it's true. I think reminding them of that and that they are duty bound to act, not in an accusatory way or in any way to inspire them to object or quarrel with you. And also tell them and remind them that it transcends politics. The immediate default will likely be to politics, even from some of your best friends. And I think it's important that it not be about politics, because if we permit every discussion about the rule of law or the oaths of office to be politicized, then shame on us. I mean that. Shame on us as lawyers. So if you can do that, remind them of their duty to act, that we're transcending politics and acting in a nonpartisan way for now and for always. Encourage them to participate and assure them that they will have the support to engage if they want to engage. And you might want to also ask them for their ideas. Again, I have this cheat sheet, I'll give it to you, and I'll be available to talk to anybody offline after this webinar. Stay organized and reliable and be prepared to share in various directions. So you want to talk about the wins, say what you'll do, do what you say, when you say you will do it, with volunteers and those with whom you engage. It might be media, civic organizations, etc. And then share information with the team that you build, if you build a team, and back to LDAD. Because again, what resonates in the Midwest or the Southwest may not resonate in New England and vice versa. So the whole idea is that we're not trying to profit from this. We're simply trying to look back at this moment and say, boy, I did something to meet this moment. And aren't I proud that I did? Now, look, probably no single one of us is going to change the history of world events, right? I mean, we don't hold such high office, but collectively and acting in a way that is worthy of our oaths, if nothing else, will make us feel that we're doing something, and at best, really start to change the dialogue that has gone so far astray. Two more points, and then I'll wrap it up. Create momentum and redundancy. I've often said a really good team, and you probably all know this to be true, is one that can function without you. So those who are inclined to lead teams, you need to think about co-leads because you're busy. I'm busy. Consider an assistant lead who can serve as your backup and provide some redundancy. If you start taking off and your media likes what they're hearing from you, you might need somebody else to say, to speak and to be fluent in the talking points that will help meet this moment. This person or these people will not likely engage or emerge immediately, but they will emerge. You will see them. So long as you tend to them and you do what you say, these folks will emerge. They will emerge, and you'll see that, and you'll be happy for them, much like it does in business, but it's a little bit different in this context. Be patient, positive, and willing to share both wins and losses. This will take time, back to my dripping example, but it really could be one of the most important things you do in your legal career. And I will challenge all of you on here. You have time to write an op-ed. You have time to write an LTE. You really don't have time not to do it, honestly. And if we're not writing these things, I just wonder who is. And we need to write. We need to speak. So be patient with yourselves. There will be setbacks, but there'll be small wins. And if you, as I suggest you do, hold these weekly Zoom meetings, one of the benefits of our Zoom world is that we can do this so readily. You can just amass people very quickly at an evening. They can be having a glass of wine after dinner. Talk about the win. Had a great meeting at the Rotary Club. This is what happened. This was the dialogue. And then hear about where you failed. Like who didn't let you in, right? And why didn't they let you in? Was the approach wrong? Was the messaging wrong for that moment? So remain in contact with LDAD and its resources. I think that's very important because if you've gone to the website, I suspect some of you have, there's some brilliant thinkers here. The speakers already, Richard Abel was outstanding. I read one of his recent books. Arabella Meyer is up next week, who promises to be a brilliant person speaking on messaging and how we meet this moment. But with that, I think I'll pause and take questions or comments. Back to you, Lauren.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Todd, for sharing your thoughts. We are open for any questions folks have. Please feel free to put your questions into the Q&A part. One of the questions is, well, when we are this project will be successful when we are all both inspiring and organizing at the same time. And we urge all of you to please follow us on LinkedIn. We are just developing in the world of Instagram and Facebook and Blue Sky. So your following us and adding to our voice would be extremely helpful. Again, thank you all for being here today. We look forward to thinking creatively with you in implementing this initiative. Take care.
Thank you.